Okay, the final thing we need to test now is the H-Bridge motor controller itself. To test it, I'll be using the Arduino to send a test signal to the motor controller to see if it performs as expected. The test will require the connection of several jumper wires. So to make the demonstration easier to observe, I'll be using a I/O board to show which pins I'm using. Right, first let me disconnect the Bluetooth module from the motor controller. Okay, let me disconnect these wires, and then I'll be using the I/O board as a bridge between the Arduino and the motor controller. Here we go. Okay, I'll bring the I/O board into the camera view. Right, here's the motor controller. I mean the Arduino. I'm gonna place it on, install it into the I/O board here. Okay, make sure that it's pointing in the right direction, because if you put it upside down, you might damage it. Usually, to identify which is the correct direction, make sure that the USB port is always pointing outside. Here we go. Okay, we have two output from the Arduino to the motor controller to control the rotation of the motor. So I'm gonna pick two jumper wires, cables, whatever you want to call it. I'll be using one of these, orange and yellow. Okay, and I'm gonna, right, okay, maybe I need to talk about the I/O board itself first. Right, these blue blocks, these columns of blue blocks, pins, they are for the signal. They are the signal coming out of the Arduino. The red pins is supply voltage. So if you connect it to a power supply here, these are live voltage. So what it does is, you can use the signal to activate whatever device you have, and use the red pins as a supply voltage. These black ones are the ground. So mainly we'll be just using these the blue columns of pins. Okay, I'll be using pin 2 and pin 3 of the Arduino as an output. Don't know if you can see it. Pin 2 and pin 3 are here. So the orange is 2 and the yellow is 3. Okay. And I'll be testing this side. I'll be testing this side of the motor controller first, and then I'll be testing the other side. So to test this side, I'll need to connect up the control pins here, this one and this one, which is input 1 and input 2 on the board. sorry, probably missed that. So this pin and this pin here for this side of the motor, and which is input 1 and input 2. You can't see it here, but you'll understand when you got your own. So it doesn't really matter which one go into which, because the other one's only the reverse of the other, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, I'll be using again this motor controller regulator as a supply power for the Arduino. For this one, I guess I'll be using yellow for the ground and green for the power, for the live wires. Okay. Got it tight. Good. Oh, and just before you test the motor controller itself, make sure that the motor you got is actually working, obviously. So what do? Connect it up to a battery. And that should, as you can see, it's working great. So now that we know we've got a working motor, we can just connect everything up. Okay, we'll be using this side of the motor controller. Okay, we've used these two pins as power output. So this is 5 volts, and this goes to the ground. Here we go. We've got the power cable to supply the power. Something's not right with this pin. That's better. Nice and tight everything. Great. Okay, now I'll just upload the program. Okay, verify and upload. Okay, you should be able to see the light flashing, right? I don't know if you catch it, but you know, you would have seen the TX and RX lights flashing. Okay, it's working. So it's uploaded. So now I'm going to disconnect the Arduino from the USB. And if I connect up these two pins, we should see that. Now we should see the motor working once I connect up the battery. Okay, and then we can test the other side of the circuit. At this moment, you don't need to be concerned about the polarity, but when you build your vehicle, make sure that everything is consistent. This is also a great thing with DC motor. If you find that, you know, the program make your motor spinning in the wrong direction, you can just unplug the pins and then swap them around and it will work just fine. With a brush motor, you can't do that. And I'm talking about the input pins here, you know. So for example, you know, if you found out your motor is not spinning the direction you want it, you can just swap these two pins with each other and then that's it. Much easier. Okay, now we're testing the other side of the circuit. Well, this port. Once again, battery, connect it. So now we have confirmed that all the components are in working order. Or maybe I should mention a little bit what I did here. I'm basically just taking the regulated 5 volts supply from here and then sending it to here so that I don't need another power supply for the I/O board and the Arduino. It was just because of that. So I can just use one battery to power up everything. Okay, now I might as well connect up the Bluetooth to the devices. VCC, green is VCC, red is ground. Okay, if you want to connect the Bluetooth module, the Arduino, you have the you simply connect the TX and RX pins to the RX and TX pins of the Arduino, the serial input output. But one thing you have to be careful is that the TX, standing for transmitting data, you have to connect that to the RX on the Arduino, the RX pin here. So let me show you now. I'll just pick a I guess gray and white wires. Okay, so for the I've got the RX as gray and TX as white. So that means I have to connect the gray wire to the TX on the Arduino. Please excuse my hand. I know it's blocking your view, but you can see that now. Okay. And the white one is TX, and it goes into the RX on the Arduino, like so. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see it better. Yes, so a lot of people have been stuck on this because they are just connecting TX to TX and RX to RX, which doesn't work. And also you have to be I also need to remind you one very important thing. When you upload your codes or your programs from the IDE to the Arduino, right, through the USB port, often you have to disconnect the RX and TX wires because they're sharing the same serial terminal. So if you connect them up, it will be the Arduino will not be able to process the data coming in from the USB. So every time when you try to upload your programs or codes from the IDE to the Arduino, remember to disconnect the RX and TX wires. And that's about it. I guess there's nothing else to talk about now. And it's time for you to put everything together and try out your system. Goodbye.